Welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. I am Adam. Today we are here to discuss a few things. The picture that came out yesterday from... There was someone on Twitter who posted the picture, and I saw it. Comicbook.com did an article about it, and I thought it was interesting. And these kind of things always fascinate me. These ideas of, what almost happened, what could have been, where did where did timelines diverge, for lack of a better phrasing? Because this person had a picture of a standee from like a theater, or I think it was like a marketing event where Marvel, pre-Marvel Studios, and before their integration with Paramount, was showing off what movies they're going to make. And we're going to talk about how that diverges from reality. But first, let's address the first big news of the day. Defenders-verse is now on Disney Plus. After 16 days where you couldn't watch it anywhere, it is now available on Disney Plus to stream. If you want to watch Daredevil, if you want to watch, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, The Punisher. If you feel like you're a masochist a little bit, you can go and watch Iron Fist or The Defenders. But Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones are all on there, so there's something worth watching. And then it's interesting because I got the notification this morning. It's like, please update your settings. And I was like, oh shit, I forgot that's coming today. So what happened is I went onto my Disney Plus account, and I decided, and I had to set it so it's like, viewable TVMA, which indicates to me that the Defenders verse is not going to be the only thing integrated in. I think at this point we can stop calling it Defenders verse. I think it's just going to be MCU canon, or MCU adjacent canon. But either way, it is now available to view on Disney Plus, and because they have the TVMA rating for more there. It seems silly to have that be a thing and only have one TVMA thing or one rated R thing. I think that considering that Sean Levy has signed on to do Deadpool 3, and because of that, Deadpool and Logan are going to eventually be integrated into Disney Plus, just for consistency of brand. Where it's like, if someone wants to go through and watch all of these things, then they have to start with the, if I'm someone who wants to watch all of the Disney shows, and I want to go through or everything Marvel adjacent as we get closer to the release of some multiversal event that's going to lead to Hugh Jackman making his appearance, or like Logan, which could be pivotal for Multiverse of Madness, considering Professor X appears to be in the movie. If someone wants to watch that, they have to go to Hulu then to watch it, which from a standpoint of selling people watching stuff, makes sense, but from the standpoint of, doing that. And the thing is, too, it's like, maybe it'll just be on both, because, that's how the 30 for 30s are working. 30 for 30 documentaries from ESPN are both on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. So if you want to watch Miracles in Men, or 4 Days in October, or any of the other, fantastic 30 for 30 documentaries, you can go to Disney Plus or to ESPN Plus to watch them. So it's kind of interesting to me that, they're planning on doing this. Okay. Asshole. So I think it's also kind of interesting that, this TVMA thing is kind of more than just that. Continuing on with the Disney Plus news, yesterday we got the trailer and release date for Ms. Marvel, revealing that Ms. Marvel will be coming out on, I just went Canadian there for a second, it's coming out on June 8th of this year. June 8th is going to be, what's it called? It's going to be Star Wars, Ms. Marvel. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. I pointed this out yesterday because Kenobi comes out the week before. or 2 weeks before Kenobi starts. Is this idea that these will be running simultaneously. For a few weeks they'll be running simultaneously, and then, fuck me with this fucking train. And then, inevitably, and here's the first. Making a turn that is not only against the light, but also against the sign. So, Miss Marvel will be running for a few weeks longer than Kenobi, but the two will be running at the same time. Now, herein lies the question I have. Okay? I saw one person or one site, The Direct, made a point about this, saying that it may be that Marvel lacks confidence in Miss Marvel. Either that, or they're looking at, they're looking at changing up the release method for Miss Marvel, making it where Miss Marvel's released at a different time, or turning Kenobi into a primetime event, rather than releasing it at midnight on on Disney Plus. Now, it is interesting to me that is being floated as an idea, where it's like, oh, they lack confidence. I don't think that's the case. I don't think they lack confidence in Miss Marvel. I think that to make the claim that they lack confidence is the same kind of thing that happens. Like, it's one of those things where, if you pay attention to pop culture over the last 5-10 years, and you look at, the way that it's been covered, look at what movies have had track records of, behind-the-scenes issues. Like, the ones that had publicly, stated issues behind the scenes. And not publicly stated, but, publicly, reported from news sites that aren't, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, and all of that. If you look at who these people are and who these sites are, and what things are being reported as having these issues, it's women-led, minority-led projects. We saw it with, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which may have had an issue with reception. People may not have been overly thrilled with, not Ghostbusters 2016. People may not have been thrilled by it, but by all legitimate accounts, production went pretty easily. There was no big, there was no big behind-the-scenes issue around Ghostbusters Afterlife, where it was big, obvious that, something wrong was happening and it needed to be, addressed. But it was reported that there was. It was reported that there was behind-the-scenes issues around, around episode 8 and around Gareth Edwards' Rogue One. Rogue One didn't have that issue. Meanwhile, Solo did not have those reports, even as directors got fired. There was no report that Justice League was having issues behind the scenes, when you can't tell me that there weren't. What happened with Justice League doesn't happen without behind-the-scenes issues. It's one of those things where it was used as a device to try and make viewers lose confidence in the project before the project come out. The studio doesn't have confidence in it, therefore it's probably not good. So if the studio had confidence in it, they wouldn't be micromanaging. It's you never see it with movies that have actual behind-the-scenes problems that are dominant, and are led by men and, directed by men, don't get that same kind of negative press treatment the same way women-directed projects and all of that do. Eternals had reports of extensive reshoots, which is just categorically untrue. It didn't happen. Maybe it should have happened, but it didn't. Like it or not, it didn't happen. And therein lies, there is a larger narrative to explore here. The narrative that, women-dominated projects are getting worse press than their male counterparts because of who's in the positions of power on those projects. that's the thing, too. It's like there was no report of Justice League, even as, like, Ray Fisher is outlining major misconduct that happened behind the scenes. This was not, like, brought to light until after the movie had already come out. Like, it is one of those things where it's like, how does that happen? That doesn't gel with reality in a good amount of cases. It's just kind of silly to think that that's how things work when it's not. So looking at, like, you know, what was happening there and how this relates to Ms. Marvel, you know, saying that, oh, it's because they lack confidence, that's not true. Because here's the thing. We have now had multiple Marvel Studios shows get released on Disney+. We had WandaVision, we had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we had What If, we had Hawkeye. So now, when Moon Knight comes out, that'll be number 5. And then number 6 will be Ms. Marvel. So, at this point, there is more than enough analytics to say, how do people view this data? And even if the data is not publicly reported, which I have said before should not be the case, like, this data should be publicly reported, considering that we are dealing with publicly traded companies. Like, it's not just Netflix. It's like Disney should report the numbers publicly too, and not just the positive ones. All of the numbers should be listed publicly because they are publicly traded companies, and it should be an independent aggregator of such information. But that's neither here nor there. They have the analytics to be able to say, well, we know that if we release this movie, like this Marvel show, people will wait to binge watch it. Like, that's the thing. Like, they have the people view Star Wars on a weekly basis. They will tune in to watch The Mandalorian every week. They will tune in to watch, every week. They will tune, or Book of Boba Fett every week. And I think that comes down to the fact that at this point, Star Wars is still geared towards older fans who are used to that. While Marvel skews to a younger audience. A younger audience would prefer to watch in a binge format where they can just sit down and marathon 6 hours of something. The target audience, while similar, it skews in 2 different directions. And that is why we're getting the situation where it looks this differently. And that's not to say that they're, that they are, they don't have confidence in Ms. Marvel. It's just saying that, look, the people who want to watch it when it happens will be able to watch it when it happens. It will be available to watch at that point. They don't have to sit here and wait for the whole thing to be done. On top of that, they will, those who want to, motherfucker. Where's there a cop or someone that just give tickets to people who do this bullshit? Looking at, if you take into consideration the fact that, the average viewer didn't, that was the thing about Hawkeye. It's viewership numbers in the first few weeks were down compared to the equal shows from the other Marvel Studios shows. Viewership was down in the initial week. But it rebounded. And why did it rebound? Because it's a weekly show. It's the same thing where it's whenever you look at ratings for streaming, you can't take the first and second and third week numbers to be indicative, because there will always be a drop-off. What happens a lot is people who watch streaming will watch the first episode or two, then they will, they will be, they know people will watch the first episode, decide if they like it, and then go, okay, because I like the first episode, I will now watch the second episode, the third episode, the fourth episode, and the fifth. Or they'll wait for all of it to come out at once, and then binge it. Because that's the thing about streaming shows. There isn't the advertiser to worry about. Whether someone watches it this week, or next week, or the week after that, or the week in the future, or they as long as it gets watched, it counts for Disney+. It doesn't harm them to have someone watch it weeks later. And that's kind of a big, a big deal. That's kind of a big thing to address. Like, it's not about when they watch it. It's just that it gets watched. It's not, and then that's, that is the difference. And I think that's for people who are, going with this narrative that it's like, oh, well, they're putting it out at the same time as Kenobi. They're concerned about it. It's like, well, no. They know they're going to have that. And that's the thing, too. It's like, there are like 3 or 4 Star Wars shows coming out this year, and 6 maybe Marvel shows coming out this year that they gotta release and space out. Because keeping in mind, after, Moon Knight comes out, then Ms. Marvel, then She-Hulk is coming out, then we have 2 holiday specials coming out this year. Because there's the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special coming out in December, and there's also the Halloween special about Werewolf by Night coming out in October. Then there's also, allegedly, What If Season 2, and allegedly Secret Invasion coming out this year. Plus, I Am Groot. There's a lot coming. And for them to be like, oh, well, we gotta sit here and space out with each other, there's gonna be an overlap. There has to be an overlap. Because then there's Cassian, the show about Andor, there's Kenobi, there's another season of Mandalorian, we already had Book of Boba Fett. There is allegedly coming another season of, Ahsoka, might be coming by the end of the year. I don't think that'll be arriving by the end of the year, but there's a chance that it premieres at the very tail end. I think that's going to be reserved for, what's it called, though? I genuinely think that we're not getting Ahsoka until next year. I think this year is going to be Mandalorian Season 3 wrapping up the year. And Andor being a late summer, early fall. But then, if it runs at the same time as one of the other shows, is that indicative of a lack of confidence? Was it indicative of a lack of confidence that there were Marvel shows running at the same time as various DC shows, The Bad Batch? Like, The Bad Batch was doing a lot, was running for a long time. It was definitely running at the same time as Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Or What If? I don't remember which. It was definitely running at the same time as one of them, because it had like a full season. And to be like, or Loki, that was it. It was running at the same time as Loki. And that's the thing. Is it's like, was that indicative of a lack of confidence? It's like, well, no, it wasn't. And people will say, well, it's animation, it's different. And it's like, well, not in the eyes of Disney. Disney doesn't view it as different. Because if they did, they wouldn't have put What If where it is, and then had What If be such an integral part of Multiverse of Madness. Like, that's a huge deal. Like, it is a false narrative designed to try and turn people away from a product they may like. It is, people have now seen a trailer, people are now excited by a trailer, so now they gotta figure out, people who are detractors need to figure out a new way to get people to turn away from something that they looked at and were like, oh, that's cool. It's, the studio doesn't have confidence. If the studio didn't have confidence, they wouldn't have released it. If the studio didn't have confidence, they would have ordered extensive reshoots. Which they haven't. The movie is coming out, or the show is coming out, as it is now. And yeah, it's been filming for a while, but it's a very visual effects heavy show. And, I still think it's going to be a big deal. This is going to be a big deal going forward. And that's the other thing, too. It's like, it is going to play into a major movie next year. So it's not that they don't lack confidence in it, because they can't afford to lack confidence in it. Because if you're going to sit here and make Captain Marvel 2 be the Marvels, you can't afford to not have confidence in one of your people who is leading that movie. Like, that is a huge problem for someone trying to sell a movie. And it's one of those things where it's like, people are obviously trying to generate disinterest. Yeah, I feel like I had one other thing I wanted to address. I mean, Netflix has their, the big news today from Netflix was the $2.99 fee for people sharing accounts, and it's like, you know, their reasoning was so stupid with that, where it's like, you know, oh, well, and the thing is, too, it kind of bothered me, because I saw the article from Deadline, I think it was, and Deadline, very obviously to the side of Netflix in the article, which is disconcerting, considering, like, if it was owned by Netflix, I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, but it's disconcerting that a press outlet is actively siding against consumers, because here's the truth of the matter. Netflix charges a minimum of $9.99 a month. They have 75 million subscribers. So if you do that math, which is completely inaccurate math, but it is literally the bare minimum based on publicly available information, where they report they have 75 million. I don't think they have exactly 75 million. They probably have a little more, a little under that. But either way, assuming that every single of the 75 million people, and I know it's not true because I definitely have a higher, like, I pay more than $9.99. If every single one of them got the standard definition $9.99 one screen package, then what would end up happening is they'd be making $9 billion a year. Billion with a B. They would be taking home that much money. That means every 9 days they could make the Batman, and or let's do a different movie that's $200 million. That you can see the effects a little bit better. Let's say Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel was about $200 million, or maybe 160. I mean, I know the Batman was $200 million. I mean, and I know in like the Avengers. Let's say the Avengers, the 2012 Avengers, which is 10 years ago, but still. Let's say every 9 days they could make that movie and still pull $2 billion in profit. And they're sitting here like, well, if people keep sharing the accounts, we won't be able to make as good quality content. Fuck you. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Like, who in the fuck? Some parent sharing their like, and I understand there are definitely people who are going overboard with the sharing, but 9 times out of 10 of the sharing that I see, that of people I know who share accounts, it is like parent shares with child, child shares with parent, child shares with grandparent, or something similar like that, where it's like, it is family. Like, yeah, maybe they don't live in the same household, but it is still, within the family. It's like, there are, I'm not going to say there are not examples of people who just have, tons and tons of people using their Netflix account, in which case that would be a violation of terms of use, and Netflix should just terminate the account. To sit here and be like, no, each person, it's ridiculous. It is like, if I'm paying for, like, if you want to crack down on the number of screens on your number of screens policy, then that's fine. And what you can do is you can do like licenses for a video game and say, okay, well, here, you're paying for this many screens. Well, this is how many screens can use it, not at once, but can use it, period, on your account. And then what you do is you just go boom, 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 here are your 4 screens, and then it doesn't matter where you are, because to sit here and be like, oh, well, we won't be able to make good content. Number one, a lot of your content is shit anyway. Like, a lot of your quote-unquote good content you're acquiring from independent filmmakers who are going out and doing the work you can't or won't do. And then on top of that, like, your original content that you're sinking hundreds and millions of dollars into is largely not good. You had that shitty-ass movie with Chris Hemsworth. You had that shitty-ass movie with Ryan Reynolds this week. You had that other shitty-ass movie with Ryan Reynolds earlier this year, Red Notice. And it's like, look, you're not making good content. So to sit here and be like, oh, well, we're doing it, it's like, where the fuck's this money going? Like, that's like, oh, well, we gotta charge an extra $2.99 if you're gonna share your account with someone else. On what fucking planet is that, like, a thing where it's like, oh, okay, that's normal? Like, and the thing is, it's like, they're testing it in a few countries in South America first. I think it's like Chile, Argentina, and I feel like there was one other, or Costa Rica. And they're testing it there to see how that works, which is great, because they're testing it on, and that's the thing too, it bothers me, it's like, oh, we're not going to test it in America, we're going to test it in these other countries first. But, like, here's the thing, you're not paying the licensing fees you used to, because you don't have Friends, you don't have The Office, you don't have, Like, I think that they paid a lot of money for Seinfeld, but, I mean, at the end of the day, how long is that going to last? And what they're doing is they're really putting into original content. And, like, look, if Mixtape cost $40 million, that's a lot. Like, if Mixtape cost $40 million, that's a lot of money. And I don't believe that Mixtape cost $40 million. I don't believe that a lot of their original content costs what they say it does. And I think that the syndication rights to a lot of the foreign TV, like, Squid Game paid off in spades for them. Because I can guarantee you they did not pay a lot of money for that. And then it took off like nobody's business. Like, it is bizarre, this move. It is like, and sit here and blame it on individuals and not like, well, why are you spending so much money making stuff that people don't care about? Like, you paid a lot of money for Mark Millar and his thing, and then you canceled one of his shows. It's like, well, great, that's an investment that you're not going to make back now. Like, okay, you're not doing enough with the money. And it's like, look at how Invincible took off. And that's an Amazon Prime show. Amazon Prime shows tend not to take off the way that Netflix originals do. Invincible took off. Like, and Invincible, like, got a lot of traction. It's bizarre to me that this is something that, like, it's just mismanagement is what it is more than anything else. It's just they're not handling what they have correctly, and then it's like, well, fuck, we gotta push this off somewhere, so we're going to say it's because people are sharing their Netflix passwords. Like, no, you're not doing enough. And it's like the Three Body Problem, they spent a lot of money on a long time ago, and they still don't have a product for it yet. Like, that was an expensive proposition, and then they hired some expensive talent behind it, and they're just now starting to get there. And it's like, The Sandman was expensive. There's no way they got away cheap getting the license to fucking Neil Gaiman's Sandman. There's no way on the planet that was a cheap thing. And now, it's been years they've been trying to do it, and it's finally happening now. And then they paid for Millar's entire back catalog, and it's like, well, fuck, what were you doing until now? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, well, why are we bothering? And then looking at, like, now the CW is, their new content is not going to Netflix. So Netflix doesn't have that as a driver, because that always was. Anytime a new, like, CW DC show, or CW anything show, All-American and Riverdale also, it always ends up in the top 10. They did the Riverdale spinoff, Sabrina, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And it's one of those things where, like, you watch this and you're looking at what's going on and you're like, oh shit, like, why is this such a problem? Why is it so hard to comprehend why, like, where it's going wrong? And it's like, what they need to do is invest in smaller projects. I'm sorry, but, like, invest in smaller projects. You don't need to invest in these multi-million-dollar investments just for the sake of investing in these giant investments. What does it do to invest in that way? Okay, go ahead, I guess. Like, what does it do to invest that much money in one of these projects that's not going to, do anything? Like the Adam Project is fine, but you also could have gotten away with doing it on a cheaper budget. Like, there is no reason why you have to have Zoe Saldana, and you have to have Mark Ruffalo, and you have to have Ryan Reynolds, and it's like, all you're doing is pricing yourself up to make it look like it's kind of like you're puffing up your resume to make it look like you have more than you do. And it's not making, like, I don't know if it's one of those things where, like, you could have done it with a cheaper cast. 100% could have done that show with a cheaper cast. And it would have been, like, just as entertaining, or not as much. Like, if you want to say we have Ryan Reynolds and we have Sean Levy and they're coming as a package deal, okay, fine, get it, completely understand it. But you do not need to have all of these other people in very small roles. Like, Zoe Saldana is expensive. She's one of very few actresses who has grossed more than one movie over $2 billion. And to sit here and be like, we have to have her in a bit part in this movie, it's just ridiculous. that's where the money's going to. And it's like, well, why? It's like Red Notice is like his big star-studded affair where it's like Gal Gadot, or Gadot, or I don't know how to pronounce her name. I think it's Gadot. You'd think I would look that up by now. But like, you have her. You have, who was the other one? You have Ryan Reynolds again, and you have, The Rock, and it's an expensive proposition. All you're doing is wasting money. You're not doing anything new. You're just throwing... It's like, okay, it's a spy thriller with 3 of the biggest stars on the planet. It's like, okay, well, why not just pay a little bit less for the star power and just do a mid-budget spy thriller? Like, that would have been a smarter move. And it's like, sit here and be like, oh, well, the quality won't be as good. It's like, no, just don't cast as many fucking rich people to do these fucking movies. I don't need this many rich people in these fucking movies. I'm sorry. The product will be just as good regardless. So we'll wrap up there for today. I don't think there's anything else really happening this week. I mean, we had a new episode of The Dropout tonight, I think. It's Wednesday. I think it comes out on Wednesday. So, yeah. So, that happens. And then The Flash is tonight, I think, too. So, I'll be watching that tomorrow. Also, tomorrow is DMZ over on the HBO Max. They said they were going to give me an advanced screener, but they have not yet. Unless they're going to send it all tomorrow like they did with Peacemaker, where they sent me everything after the pilot had already premiered. But we'll see. So, yeah. So we'll be back with that. Until then, have a great rest of your week.